Cleopatra is one of the most famous female rulers in history. She was the last Egyptian pharaoh, reigning over Egypt from 51 BCE to 30 BCE. Her reign came to an end when she was 39. She took her own life, refusing to be ruled over by the conquering Roman Empire. Cleopatra's reign was certainly a colorful one, waging civil war with her brother, seducing Roman generals, marrying her brothers, and ordering the death of her sister. Cleopatra did it all. And while these events were all well documented, the origins of Cleopatra's ancestry are a little trickier to ascertain. Some have claimed that she was black, with her bloodlines coming from African royalty. Others have mentioned that her family ties were linked to Greece and even Persia, and they maintained that firmly. So what exactly was the ancestry of Cleopatra? What can we determine about her family tree with reasonable confidence? Well, this is what we do know. One fact that pretty much all historians agree on is that Cleopatra was not an ethnic Egyptian. She in fact came from Ptolemy lineage, which originated in Macedonian Greece. The Ptolemy dynasty all began after the death of Alexander the Great. Ptolemy was one of Alexander's generals, and when Alexander died in 323 BCE, his vast empire was carved up and handed over to his generals. Ptolemy was awarded Egypt, and in 305 BCE he became Ptolemy I of Egypt. For the next 300 years, Egypt will be ruled by Ptolemy's heirs. A significant part of Cleopatra's DNA was therefore unquestionably Macedonian Greek. And what a powerful gene pool it was. It was the first half of the 4th century. The Macedonian Empire was the biggest in the world. Macedonia lay in the north-central region of Greece, and its borders reached far beyond Greece when it was at its peak. Under the command of Alexander the Great, the Macedonian Empire stretched as far south as India and Pakistan, and then over to Central Asia and Egypt. When Ptolemy took over as ruler of Egypt, he married Berenice, the granddaughter of the ruler of Macedonia. It's from here that we can directly trace Cleopatra's roots all the way back to ancient Macedonia. The paternal side of Cleopatra's family tree was directly connected to Macedonia and Greece. This is perhaps fitting, as the name Cleopatra can be translated in Greek as honor of the father. It was on the maternal side, however, that some inconsistencies make it more difficult to pinpoint the exact origins and racial background of some of Cleopatra's ancestors. The Ptolemaic dynasty took hold in Egypt, and the tradition of marrying within the family was adhered to whenever possible. If one of Ptolemy's male descendants had a sister, he would marry her. In situations when the male heir had no sisters, he had to look outside the family lineage for a wife. This was the case when Ptolemy V married Cleopatra I in 193 BCE. This marriage is also important in helping us determine Cleopatra's ancestry. While Ptolemy V came from Macedonian Greek stock, his wife Cleopatra I was in fact from Persia, or modern-day Iran. She was a priestess of the Seleucid Empire, which was another dynasty that originated in Macedonia in 312 BCE by the Macedonian general Seleucus. Seleucids took over from where Alexander the Great left off, and their empire ran from India all the way up to Asia Minor and Persia. While there is no way of being absolutely certain, it seems likely that the intermarriages between Macedonians and Persian-based Seleucids means that Cleopatra most likely had blood relations from Persia. Cleopatra I and Ptolemy V had 3 children. It was through these children that the seeds were sown for Cleopatra's mixed heritage of Macedonian Greek and Persian. A further complication comes with Cleopatra's grandfather, Ptolemy IX. He had 2 children, one to Cleopatra, the 4th, and one to concubine. Cleopatra IV had a direct blood link to Macedonian Greece. However, the origins of the concubine are murky, to say the least. She may have been Greek, Egyptian, or even Syrian. This means that Cleopatra's ancestry was more mixed than her predecessors. At the very least, part Macedonian Greek, and most likely some Persian with a little Greek or Egyptian thrown in for good measure. She was the 7th woman of the Ptolemy dynasty to be called Cleopatra, and she was the second daughter of Ptolemy XII and Cleopatra V. The incestual structure of the Ptolemy dynasty was truly carried out to the letter during Cleopatra's reign. When her father Ptolemy XII died, Cleopatra was forced to stick with the custom and marry her younger brother Ptolemy XIII. Never mind that she was 18 and he was just 10, rules were rules. It's clear that they both despised the arrangement, and they were soon caught up in a bitter power struggle to become the sole ruler of Egypt. Not long after they were married, Cleopatra claimed her right to the throne. In her mind, she was older than her brother and had earned her the right to rule. It must be also assumed that several advisors were calling the shots throughout much of this turmoil, as child rulers are unlikely to have had the political know-how to orchestrate such power plays. Even though Cleopatra was determined to rule Egypt by herself, Ptolemy XIII was having none of it. He soon amassed his own army, eventually driving Cleopatra out of Egypt and into exile. Determined to regain what she saw as her rightful position as Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra sought out a powerful ally, Julius Caesar. This was a smart move by a very smart woman. Cleopatra is renowned for her physical beauty, but it's her intellect that was most likely her greatest asset. She spoke at least half a dozen languages and was a gifted mathematician in addition to being well-versed in philosophy and literature. One of the languages was Egyptian, and Cleopatra was one of the first Ptolemaic pharaohs to actually learn the language. It no doubt won her great respect across Egypt and would have proven to be especially effective when communicating with her army and generals. Cleopatra's plan was to seduce Julius Caesar and then coerce him to use his military might to overthrow her brother as the ruler of Egypt, and the plan worked perfectly. Just a year after being exiled, Caesar's army marched into Egypt and Ptolemy's time in charge was over. Under the watchful eye of Cleopatra, the Roman soldiers overthrew Ptolemy XIII. He attempted to flee Egypt to save his life, but he drowned in the Nile during his escape. She then married her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and they were declared the co-rulers of Egypt. This was to be a short-lived arrangement, for Cleopatra had grand visions of her legacy and how she wanted Egypt to be ruled. She moved to Rome to live with Caesar, where they had a son, Caesarion. Things took a dramatic turn as Caesar was assassinated. Cleopatra was nothing if not ambitious, and she soon returned to Egypt, determined to rule over her land with her son. Her younger brother and husband Ptolemy XIV was poisoned, and he died in 44 BCE, most likely at the orders of Cleopatra herself. Cleopatra finally found true love with the Roman general Mark Antony. In typical fashion, this was another complicated relationship, as Antony was married at the time and yet had 3 children with Cleopatra. Mark Antony was involved in a fierce power struggle with the soon-to-be Roman Emperor Octavian. Octavian ultimately set his sights on taking control of Egypt, leading to the death of Antony and Cleopatra ultimately opting for a suicide over a massive defeat. Was Cleopatra's tumultuous life linked to her ancestry of the Macedonians, where conquering and domination were in their blood? It's possible, very much possible. She certainly came from a strong lineage of powerful rulers who had no hesitation in seizing what they wanted. As for another theory that Cleopatra may have been black or African, it's pretty unlikely. Apart from her being directly related to a Macedonian bloodline, depictions of the Egyptian queen suggest that she was fair or olive-skinned. Evidence on Egyptian coins and Roman busts portrays Cleopatra as a refined Greek-style woman. Her hair pulled back, handsome face, and Greek tunic clearly reflecting her Macedonian heritage. This is in stark contrast to how Cleopatra is generally depicted in popular culture, as an exotic olive-skinned goddess. No matter what her exact ancestry is, there is little doubt that Cleopatra lived an incredibly eventful life. It was also full of remarkable achievements that are often overlooked because of the dramas and conflicts that were common throughout her reign. Some of her feats included bolstering Egypt's economy by lowering agricultural taxes, which encouraged more output from farmers. Cleopatra realized the importance of a strong navy to maintain power, and she set about beefing up Egypt's naval authority. She initiated new trade routes and formed a strong alliance with Rome. Ancestry and seduction aside, Cleopatra should be remembered for fighting to preserve Egypt's independence. She was one of the world's truly prolific and innovative leaders.